In the era which he comes from, he has seen more than enough war and bloodshed against a variety of adversaries, taking on a variety of forms, even fighting with his comrades to build their own sovereign nation, and watching that dream driven down into despair. He lives now as a cynic, away from people as best as he can, hoping to strike some gold, though we don't know exactly what his dreams are to do once he hits his gold. He no longer buys into the idealistic causes that drive men mad and into conflict, but through no fault of his own or plan of his own, he's about to be pulled into another civil war on the planet Mars, into an interplanetary adventure to rescue the damsel in distress and to save the world, even if that world is Mars. This is 2012, John Carter. Starring Taylor Kitsch, Lynn Collins, no less than Willem Dafoe. And if you saw HBO's Rome, you'll recognize a ton of people in here that I won't even try to name them all. Of course, John Carter is taken from the Mars novels of Edgar Rice Burroughs. Man, what can you say about Edgar Rice Burroughs? The guy lived 100 years ago plus. In the late 19th century, he gave us At the Earth's Core, the Pellucidar novels, the Mars novels. He dubbed it Barsoom. We saw extraterrestrial life through his eyes in a way that we had never seen before. He really set the standard. So many things derive from Edgar Rice Burroughs that in fact, when you watch the film John Carter, it feels like it was completely ripped off from other sci-fi at various eras. The arena scene looks so much like the weird one from the Star Wars prequels, and yet, no, that you got it out of order of chicken and egg. All of this is derived from Edgar Rice Burroughs so long ago, including his Tarzan novels. I mean, the guy set up everything that became Star Wars, Star Trek, Indiana Jones. At the Earth's Core, we got a good look at the inner Earth in a way what no one else really gave us. We got the inner Earth reptilian conspiracy that is still with us on the internet, thanks to Edgar Rice Burroughs. There was a lot of criticism against this movie, and you can still find this out there online. A lot of the criticisms are things like the narrative is too clunky, there's too many different introductions, there's too much backstory, or our hero is too unenthusiastic. To all of this, I say this is hogwash. This is not a problem. If it's a problem, then you don't understand the source material, and maybe that's part of the problem now. We know all of these various elements of it because we've seen it in other films. So now making a John Carter movie, now making a film based on Edgar Rice Burroughs, it feels derivative. And we don't understand the importance of getting the backstory. We don't understand. It's hard to feel John Carter's reluctance to go to war or believe in anything. The guy is a Confederate Civil War veteran who fought for the South. Is at the beginning of our film or of our story, the Union Army is trying to conscript him back into the United States military to force him to help fight the Indians. He'd been in the Indian Wars. He'd been in the Civil War. And there's a beautiful moment when he says to the Yankee in charge, right? After everything I've been through, whatever you think I owe our country, it is paid in full. Believe it or not, this resonated very close to home with the audience of the late 19th century when this comes out, just a few decades really after the events of the Civil War. This was people's fathers went through this, maybe their grandfather. And so for us, it's like weird. Why begin a sci-fi story that long ago? Because it was written really that long ago. So the bloodshed of the American Civil War, the uncounted dead, that despair, that aching despair of the South that not only loses its bid for independence, but then is stomped on through Reconstruction and radical changes which alter all of their way of life. No, not just slavery. Everything about that old European culture they were preserving down there, the tragedy of it. Without understanding that historical context a little bit, without getting that backstory at the beginning, you cannot understand why John Carter, yes, is a very reluctant hero. In that sense, he is in every respect a commentary on the war between the states, on war in general, and really a commentary on what heroism really is. As he gets pulled to Mars against his will, he gets caught up in this conflict between the last remaining cities of a dying planet that is drying out. We learn that there's an even bigger problem of these spectral, ancient, alien creatures that take humanoid form that apparently move from dying planet to suck out the last life energy as the planet is dying, and they help manipulate the situation. There's a princess Deja Forest, who does not want to get married to the man that her father's trying to make an alliance out of desperation with the evil ruler. But the evil ruler is not going to keep his word, and nobody wants that. Ultimately, everybody wants to overthrow the evil city. And there on Mars, we have different tribes and different species. We meet the Tharks, the tall, skinny, green, fighting people. Tark is played by no less than Willem Dafoe. Imagine the late 19th century, a novel about weird alien creatures, tall, green, fighting men with tusks, the little dog-like entity that can run at super speeds, which is an amazing sort of addition to any plot. We rescuing the damsel in distress. We, along with John Carter, find ourselves pulled into this alien conflict. And again, it's a civil war for a dying civilization, the last hangers-on that want to preserve the culture and the way of life itself, for them and their posterity. John Carter is that reluctant hero who's pulled in, because that is the nature of real heroism, isn't it? And I think that's the commentary. Real heroes are not the leaders that we imagine that give great speeches. Most of those people have ulterior motives. Most of those people have an escape route, or they have some sort of deal that when it's all over and they surrender, maybe they'll get some sort of decent treatment. Whatever they are risking for life and limb, it's different than the ordinary guy that's carried along. The ordinary guy is defending his home, defending his family, defending his property, defending the very basic means of existing and living without being terrorized. His goals are much more narrow. But the fighting man is always pulled into these broad conflicts between groups and interests and nations and economic interests and territorial gains and you name it. So John Carter, despite all the criticism, he is what he is, just like from the books, because without that cynicism, without him being drug along against his will, he wouldn't represent what he really represents, which is the heroism inherent in those people that stand up and fight because they got no choice, who rather than die, let themselves be pulled into the cause, rather than give up something, are willing finally, after everything has failed, to try to stay out of it, backed into a corner. They're willing to stand up. And that's the real highlight of how that is portrayed in the film, when finally he realizes he has to become the tribal leader of the Tharks. He's learned enough about their culture, their gods, their goddess Isis, and he takes over the Thark tribe through single combat, defeating the bad guy, the bully, and declares that now the Tharks are going to get involved as this third party in the Civil War, and they will defend the city-state of Helium. And there's this great epic battle at the end where they arrive and they save the day. Everything about it, to me, was very satisfying. Edgar Rice Burroughs, At the Earth's Core in particular, was one of the first books I ever read in high school when I started reading real books and reading them completely. I love Burroughs. So when I saw that this movie had been released, and I didn't even know it existed until a couple of years ago, long after it had come out in 2012, I was happy to watch it. Everything about it is done really well. All the special effects look really good. The CGI that they use is great. It's a very believable. I never thought I'd see the Mars novel. This is Princess of Mars really being brought to the screen like this. It clearly could have launched a franchise, which is what Disney intended, but they totally dropped the ball. I mean, I didn't know it existed, so I don't know what advertising went wrong. I don't know who talked about it, and it probably never gained the cultural buzz in competition with things like Disney, Star Wars, the Disney Marvel stuff that is more recent in our culture than trying to revive Edgar Rice Burroughs. I don't believe we've seen the last of this, whether it's Disney or someone else, because you can't, in the era of streaming, when everyone is hustling to try to create more and more and more content, whether it will be good or not, somebody will recycle this, because Edgar Rice Burroughs is a treasure trove of things, all of those novels that exist that haven't been touched upon, a treasure trove of things to at least splat up onto a screen. Lord Almighty, I hope somebody smart gets it and does it well, because this one in 2012 was good. I don't trust anyone currently to make a decent one, but we'll see what happens. But if you haven't seen it, watch it, catch it, tell me what you think. I really enjoyed it. It's one that I'll watch again and again. John Carter.